MICAT Hour is that program that highlights all of the different activities of the government, that happen during the course of the week. But of course, we talk about things, that happen with civil society and other members of society that are relevant to the government of the Republic of Liberia, or, that is pertinent to the society as a whole. And so that's what we do here every Friday. We highlight these things. This is a production of the Ministry of Information, Culture Affairs, and Tourism. Will come your way every Friday right here on ELBC 99.9. My name is Borkai M. Fofana. I am your presenter. We expect Joseph Dane to come in later. Kwame is traveling. Just in case you've been wondering, where was Kwame in a paar weeks? The Director General of the Liberian News Agency, who is normally my co-host, and we will chit-chat about a number of stuff. He's traveling. At some point, we're definitely going to attempt to bring him online to just talk about his travel experience. I'm not going to say where he's traveling to today, but yeah. So that is the situation with Kwame. But hey, we expect Joseph Dane to join us later during the course of the program. Joseph Dane is Liberia's best comedian. He's unbeatable. I mean, there's nobody that compares. There's nobody that comes close to Joseph Dane. He's Liberia's funniest man. That is unquestionable. Anyway, a lot of things we're going to be talking about today. You can't afford to miss today's program. Today we're going to be talking about, firstly, that the president arrived back to the country following, very welcoming presentation. He made Liberia's case at the UNGA. They just ended UNGA. He was welcomed there by dozens of Liberians who came out from adjoining states to say thank you to His Excellency, but also to express their approval of him and his presidency. This goes against all of the different narratives about whether or not the president was popular with diaspora Liberians or what have you. Where these people, you cannot talk about people in the diaspora expressing their support and say they were bust, because these are people who make their own money, so because that's the false narrative they can say when people in Liberia, come out in their numbers and express their support, they will tell you, oh, the people were buzzed, they were paid and whatever. I don't know what kind of explanation they will put on the fact that we have, hundreds. I said dozens earlier, but there were hundreds of Liberians that turned out in the U.S. And then when the president came back, a lot of people did turn out at the airport to welcome him. We're also going to be talking about the fact that the president, the new Chief Justice of Liberia, CNN Yo, was formally commissioned by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia, on yesterday, September 29. Also during the course of the week, there was the World Bank 2021 economic updates, which essentially talks about the past year and projects for the future. It gave a really positive projection about Liberia's economy and some of the gains that the country is making. Also this week, MICAT responded to the Unity Party's chairman, who the Ministry of Information said imprudently, without much circumspection. In other words, he was not even careful, didn't logically put forth his criticism of the president's annual address and just came out and said it was broad day deception without even offering any explanation. So MICAT pounded on the UP's chairman, Reverend Luther Tape, who the Ministry of Information called a political rookie. In other words, he's a newcomer as far as politics is concerned. But the massive one is coming on tomorrow. The president is going to be celebrating his 56th birthday. He's going to be observing. I don't know whether it's going to be a celebration. As far as we know, up until now, there aren't any programs, that are planned for the president's 56th birthday so far. We beginning to gather that is going to be observed rather quietly. So those are the things we're going to be talking about on this program. You can't afford to miss. There is a documentary on the president's life. We will play it right at the top of the show. My name again is Borkai M. Fofana. Welcome back to MICAT Hour. Like we said, a lot of things happened this week, but tomorrow Liberia is going to be observing the 56th birthday of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia. George M. Weah, was born in 1966 on October 1, and he rose from poverty. A lot of Liberians can relate to that. Some of the places the president grew up, in Claratown, for instance, he scavenged on some of the different dump sites, played with bottles and all the different things that any Liberian kid that is, will do. He was born to William Weah, and his mom was a seller. His father was a heavy-duty mechanic. Who would have imagined, my people, who would have imagined that the son of a heavy-duty mechanic, the son of a heavy-duty mechanic and a seller, a marketer, would be president of Liberia today? That is the case with President Weah. As a matter of fact, when he was born, his mother and father separated. So he had to live with his paternal grandmother. That's where you hear him, Gilale, coming from, Emma, Gilale, and stuff like that. That's why he's so passionate. I mean, he so much adores his grandmother. That is because, she stood up for him. There were a number of cases that she took care of. She took care of him as well. But listen to this life story of President George M. Weah, as documented by a foreigner. And there might be some unpleasant reminders about the country's dark history. But yeah, we've moved on. All of us know that we've moved on. Some of the old cleavages and rivalries that existed no longer exist. Counties have reconciled with one another and all of that. So just in case you hear that, there's disregard. But this is intended to focus on the life story of His Excellency, the President.
A man whose life has seen him move from a childhood in the slums of the capital of Liberia to Europe's most famous football clubs and now to being president of Liberia. Weah's soccer exploits and his charitable work off the field made him a hero to a country divided by tribe, politics, and a brutal civil war. At some point, his charitable work even put him on a collision course with the warlord and former Liberian president, Charles Taylor, to such an extent that George Weah fled from Liberia, fearing for his life. In this episode of African Biographics, we look at the interesting life story of the man known as King George to his supporters. George Weah was born outside Monrovia, Liberia, on the 1st of October 1966. His father was the first heavy-duty mechanic in Liberia, while his mother brought in money by selling goods from a table set up along Monrovia's waterfront. George Weah's parents separated when he was just a baby, and so the young boy became one of 13 children raised by his devoutly Christian grandmother, Ma Emma Clone Brown. The large family lived in a shack in the slums of Gibraltar neighborhood, adjoining Claratown on Bush Road Island in Monrovia. The young man had a very strong bond with his grandmother, and she was very supportive of him. He was even quoted saying in an interview that, "All the minutes and seconds and hours in my career, my entire life, I dedicate to my grandmother." According to accounts from family members that saw him grow up, they say that George started playing football the moment he learned to walk as a child. Like other boys in the neighborhood, young George sold pop sell just to make a bit of extra money. This was all while spending his youth playing barefoot soccer with homemade rag balls on the streets of Claratown, Monrovia.
Very difficult. I had a very difficult life, in terms of not having somebody to be there for me. But thank God I have my grandmother that took care of me. Yeah, things were difficult, and sometimes I don't like to go back to my youth days because it's not a pleasant life.
At this juncture, it is important to point out that when George Weah was growing up, the political landscape in Liberia was quite turbulent, to say the least. For instance, in April of 1980, when Weah was just 13 years old, he watched from the beach as a firing squad killed 13 officials of assassinated President William Tolbert's government. This was following a military coup led by Samuel Doe, the military man who took over from William Tolbert as president. When Samuel Doe took over, the nation of Liberia was full of hope, and they truly believed that they had turned over a new leaf. In an interview that George Weah once gave, he said that the overthrow of William Tolbert empowered us in a positive way. After the coup, everything was open in Liberia. We could find jobs to a brutal dictator. Now back to George Weah. He attended high school on soccer scholarships, but he lacked interest in the academic side of it all, and so he dropped out of school after his junior year. Before his football career allowed him to move abroad, at some point, young George worked for the Liberian Telecommunications Corporation as a switchboard technician. However, by 1981, George Weah was moving rapidly up through Liberia's best soccer teams, first playing for the Young Survivors, the Mighty Barrow, and then later for a team called the Invincible 11. Speaking of his experience in these teams, George Weah said they would play from morning till night every single day. Playing football was an outlet for them to escape from the squalid conditions and tough life of the slums. Weah's earnings from playing for